Imagine a graph with two lines climbing a mountain. The first line is bright green, and it represents your income. It starts modest, maybe dips a little during training, and then skyrockets vertically into the top 1%. That is the doctor's salary. But right next to it, almost touching it, is a red line. That is your spending. And the terrifying thing about high-income professions isn't that they don't make money. It is that the red line chases the green line with magnetic precision. As the income jumps from 60,000 to 300,000, the spending jumps to 299,000 almost overnight. This creates a graph where the lines move in parallel, upward and to the right, forever. And because your net worth lives in the tiny gap between those two lines, you can earn $4 million over a decade and have a net worth of exactly zero. Today, I'm going to show you why doctors are the perfect case study for lifestyle inflation and how to snap those lines apart before it is too late. Now, you might not be a neurosurgeon. You might be an engineer, a lawyer, or a business owner. It does not matter. The mechanics of the trap are exactly the same. In fact, the higher your income potential, the harder this trap snaps shut. I have spent a lot of time looking at the financials of high earners, and the pattern is brutally consistent. We assume that a high salary acts as a shield against financial ruin, but the data shows it often acts as an accelerant. It allows us to dig deeper holes faster. In this video, we are going to break down the psychology, the math, and the specific structural failures that keep high earners broke. And then, I'm going to walk you through the specific strategy, the lifestyle lag, that can fix it. If you want to actually keep the money you trade your life for, do me a favour and subscribe to the channel. It is the best return on investment you will get on your time today. Now, let's look at the myth of the rich doctor. There is a cultural assumption that becoming a doctor is the golden ticket. We see the title, we see the parking spot at the hospital, and we assume wealth. But wealth and income are cousins, not twins. Income is what comes in, wealth is what stays. And for the vast majority of physicians, nothing stays. The White Coat Investor, a resource I respect highly, points out that typical physicians earn anywhere from $150,000 to $500,000 a year. That puts them squarely in the top tax brackets. Yet, data shows that about 25% of physicians have a net worth under $1 million, even after decades of working. Think about that math. You could churn through $10 million of gross income over a career and end up with less than a tenth of it to show for your effort. The question we have to ask is, where does it all go? The answer starts before they even earn their first paycheck. Let's look at the starting line. Most people start their financial race at zero. Doctors start in a hole so deep you can't see daylight. The median medical school debt for recent graduates is hovering around $200,000. Many specialists I've spoken to are looking at $300,000 or more. And this is not interest-free money. These loans are accruing interest while the student is still in residency, making $60,000 a year and barely scraping by. By the time they become an attending physician, the moment the big paycheck finally arrives, they are technically insolvent. Their net worth is negative $250,000. They are in their early 30s, they have zero assets, massive liabilities, and they have lost the most powerful decade for compound interest. Mathematically, they have to sprint just to get back to the starting line where the plumber and the teacher started 10 years ago. And this pressure to catch up creates a very dangerous psychological state. This is where the human element breaks the spreadsheet. Imagine you have spent your 20s inside a library or a hospital ward. You have missed weddings, you have skipped vacations, and you have eaten cafeteria food while your friends from college were buying houses and leasing BMWs. You have delayed gratification for a decade. When that first real paycheck hits, maybe it is $20,000 in a single month, the dam breaks. It is not just about greed, it is about relief. It is a psychological release valve. This is called pent-up deferred gratification. You feel you are owed a lifestyle. You tell yourself, I am a doctor, I should live like a doctor. So, instead of using that income to aggressively fill the debt hole, the money gets diverted immediately to visible markers of success. The reasoning feels sound in the moment. You worked hard, you suffered, you deserve the nice car. But this emotional reaction is exactly what keeps the spending line glued to the income line. You are trying to buy back the lost decade of your 20s with the income of your 30s. The first step to fixing this is admitting the hole exists. If you have negative net worth, you are not rich. You are a high-income poor person. That sounds harsh, but it is the necessary reframe. The protocol here is to separate your identity from your bank balance. Just because you have an MD or a VP after your name does not mean you can afford the lifestyle associated with it. Yet. The goal in this early stage is to live like a resident for 2 to 5 years after you start making the big money. If you can hold your spending at $60,000 while making $300,000, that huge gap, that $250,000 wedge, is what fills the hole. But most people do not do that. They let the lifestyle inflate instantly. And this brings us to the most dangerous trap of all. If you think the student loans are the main problem, you are wrong. Loans are simple math. You can pay them off. The real killer is what happens to your fixed expenses the moment you sign that attending contract. There is a specific mechanism that locks doctors into a cycle of poverty, despite earning in the top 1%. It is not the lattes, and it is not the avocado toast. It is a structural trap that, once you sign on the dotted line, you cannot budget your way out of. I'm going to show you how high earners accidentally turn their freedom into a monthly bill. We often use the term lifestyle creep or lifestyle inflation loosely, but let's define it technically. Lifestyle inflation is when your consumption rises in direct proportion to your income, ensuring your savings rate remains static or declines. For a normal earner, lifestyle creep means buying name brand ketchup instead of generic. For a high earner, it means structural upgrades that come with contracts. We are talking about the jump from a rented apartment to a mortgage on a 4-bedroom house in a good school district. We are talking about the jump from a 10-year-old Honda to a lease on a Tesla and a Range Rover. These aren't one-time purchases, they are new baselines. Once you move into the bigger house, you need to furnish it. You need to heat it. You need to landscape it. The spending line on our graph doesn't just drift up, it teleports to a new level and locks in there. Let's run the numbers on a typical scenario. Say our doctor, let's call him Dr. A, lands a job paying $300,000 a year. After taxes, malpractice insurance and benefits, his take-home might be around $18,000 a month. That sounds huge, but watch how fast it evaporates. Student loan repayment, $3,000. Mortgage on the doctor house plus property taxes, $6,000. 2 car leases, $1,500. Private school for 2 kids, $4,000. We haven't even bought groceries yet, and we have already spent $14,500. That leaves $3,500 for food, utilities, travel, clothing, and, crucially, investing. On a graph, his fixed expense line is sitting right below his income line. There is no margin for error. If he gets sick, or if reimbursement rates drop, or if there is a pandemic, he is underwater. He is making $300,000 a year, but he is living paycheck to paycheck. Why do smart people sign up for this math? It comes back to the stress spending cycle. Medicine is brutal. 81% of physicians report feeling overworked. When you work an 80-hour week dealing with life and death, you come home emotionally depleted. You don't have the bandwidth to comparison shop or negotiate. You want convenience and you want comfort. This leads to what I call soothing spending. You order the expensive takeout because you are too tired to cook. You book the luxury resort vacation because you feel you need to escape your reality, not just experience a new place. You buy the expensive car because the commute is the only alone time you get, and you want it to feel like a sanctuary. This is the "I earned it" trap. And to be fair, you did earn it. You worked for the money. But by spending it on fixed comforts to soothe your stress, you are ensuring that you have to keep working that stressful job forever to pay for the comforts. It is a perfect closed loop. Breaking this cycle requires a hard rule on fixed obligations. The rule is simple. Never upgrade a fixed cost immediately after a raise. When your income jumps, your fixed expenses, rent, mortgage, car payments, must stay flat for at least 12 months. You can buy a nice dinner. You can buy a new pair of shoes. Those are one-time variable costs. But you cannot sign a contract. This cooling off period breaks the emotional link between more stress and more stuff. It forces you to prove that you can save the difference first. If you can save the surplus for a year, then you can consider upgrading the house. But usually, after a year, the impulse fades. You realize the smaller house is fine, and the freedom of having cash in the bank feels better than the granite countertops. Most financial advice tells you to focus on the small stuff. Stop buying coffee. Cancel Netflix. I am going to tell you to do the opposite. Buy the coffee. Keep Netflix. The reason doctors go broke has nothing to do with $5 purchases. It is entirely driven by 3 specific decisions that act as status symbols. If you get these 3 things wrong, no amount of budgeting will save you. But if you get them right, you can spend whatever you want on lattes. The 3 levers that dictate your financial destiny are your house, your car, and your schooling. For doctors, these are not just expenses, they are badges of rank. There is immense pressure to signal your status to your peers. If you are a surgeon, you are expected to drive a certain caliber of car into the hospital lot. If you live in a certain zip code, you are expected to send your kids to the private school down the street. It is a mimetic desire. We want what our peers have. BF Advisors notes that many doctors live beyond their means simply to chase the perceived expectations of what a physician's lifestyle should look like. You are not just buying a car, you are buying acceptance. But this signalling is incredibly expensive. It turns your income into a public performance rather than a private asset. Let's look at the car specifically. A standard reliable car might cost $30,000. A doctor car, a luxury SUV or sports sedan, might cost $90,000. Over a 5-year period, with insurance, premium gas, and depreciation, the luxury car costs effectively double or triple the standard one. Now apply that to housing. $1 million mortgage at today's interest rates is crushing. But it's not just the mortgage. It's the property tax, the maintenance, the heating. A bigger house is a bigger liability. And private school? That is $20,000 to $40,000 per kid per year, paid with after-tax dollars. To pay a $30,000 tuition bill, you need to earn nearly $50,000 gross. If you have 3 kids, that is $150,000 of your salary gone just to cover school. When you stack house, car, and school, you have accounted for 80% of your take-home pay before you have even bought groceries. Deep down, this spending is often driven by imposter syndrome. Physicians are high achievers who are terrified of failure or looking incompetent. Displaying wealth is a shortcut to saying, "I made it. I am competent. Look at my driveway." It shields the ego. It is uncomfortable to be the high earner driving a 10-year-old Toyota. It raises questions. People wonder if you are struggling, and that social friction is real. It takes a very strong internal compass to ignore it. But here is the irony. The colleagues flashing the expensive cars are often the ones most stressed about money. They are financing their status. By copying them, you are just copying their anxiety. You are competing in a game where the prize is golden handcuffs. The fix here is to reframe what you are buying. Instead of asking, "What does a doctor drive?" ask, "What does this car cost me in freedom?" I like to price things in terms of shifts or call nights. If a luxury car lease costs you 2 extra overnight on-call shifts a month, is it worth it? Is the leather seat worth being awake at 3 a.m. away from your family? Usually the answer is no. This is values-based spending. You decide to opt out of the status game. You can be the eccentric doctor with the old Volvo. Wear it like a badge of honour. That old car isn't a sign of poverty. It's a sign that you don't have to pick up extra shifts unless you want to. We've talked about the trap. Now I want to show you the way out. And I want to do it visually. I'm going to put 2 graphs on the screen. One belongs to Dr. A, the typical spender we just discussed. The other belongs to Dr. B. They make the exact same salary. They work in the same hospital. But 10 years down the line, Dr. A is broke and burnt out, while Dr. B is a multimillionaire who works 3 days a week. The difference comes down to a single geometric shape on the graph. Let's look at Dr. A first. This is the graph of the lifestyle inflation trap. On the x-axis, we have years since residency. On the y-axis, dollars. The green income line shoots up to $350,000, but the red spending line chases it immediately. It hovers right below income. The gap between them, the net worth wedge, is razor thin. Dr. A is saving maybe 5% of his income. He thinks he is doing okay because he puts a little into his 401k. But because his spending is so high, his freedom number, the amount he needs to retire, is also massive. He is running on a treadmill that keeps speeding up. After 10 years, his net worth line is barely off the floor. He has assets, sure, a house, cars, but he also has massive liabilities. He is asset heavy, but cash poor. Now look at Dr. B. This comes from a concept discussed by Talivsky partners called the fixed personal salary. Dr. B makes the same $350,000, but she decides, logically, that she was living on $60,000 as a resident, so she can comfortably live on $120,000 as an attending. She doubles her lifestyle, which feels amazing, but she caps it there. Her spending line goes flat. It stops rising. Meanwhile, her income line keeps drifting up. The gap between the two lines becomes a massive widening wedge. She is saving and investing $200,000 a year. That is almost $17,000 a month flowing into index funds, real estate, or debt payoff. In the first year, the difference is noticeable. By year 5, thanks to compound interest, her net worth line is going parabolic. It creates a J-curve of wealth. The magic here isn't just that Dr. B has more money. It's that she needs less money to be free. Because her spending line is lower, her retirement target is lower. She is attacking a smaller enemy with a bigger army. Dr. A needs $10 million to sustain his expensive lifestyle. Dr. B might only need $3 million to sustain hers. And since she is saving 10 times as much as Dr. A, she hits her number in 7 to 10 years. Dr. A takes 30 to 40 years. That is the difference. The graph shows us that rich isn't about the height of the green income line. It is about the width of the wedge between income and spending. That white space on the chart? That is your freedom. So how do you actually execute Dr. B's strategy? You don't do it with willpower. You do it with automation. You set up a system where that wedge money never hits your checking account. It goes directly from your payroll or business account into investment accounts and debt payments. You literally hide the money from yourself. You learn to run your life on the remaining post-savings amount. If the money isn't there, you can't spend it on a heated driveway. You artificially create scarcity. You make yourself feel broke in your checking account, while your net worth explodes in the background. It is psychological warfare against your own worst impulses. There is one final objection I hear all the time. Tom, I don't want to live like a miser. I could get hit by a bus tomorrow. I want to enjoy my money. And I agree. You should enjoy your money. But there is a profound difference between enjoying your life and financing a lifestyle. One brings joy, the other brings obligation. I want to close by showing you how to spend money in a way that actually buys happiness, rather than just buying stress. The ultimate luxury for a high earner isn't a Porsche. It is autonomy. It is the ability to say no. When you keep your fixed costs low, you are buying the option to walk away. You are buying the ability to work part-time. You are buying the ability to take a sabbatical. In the medical world, burnout is rampant. The doctors who are happiest aren't the ones with the biggest houses. They are the ones who have FU money. They can practice medicine on their own terms because they don't need the paycheck to cover a $10,000 mortgage. They have decoupled their survival from their employer. That is true wealth. I want you to try a specific exercise. Next time you want to buy a luxury item, calculate its cost in freedom units. If you make $1,000 a day after tax and you want a $60,000 boat, that boat costs 60 days of your life. It costs 2 months of waking up early, dealing with stress, and missing time with your family. Is the boat worth 2 months of servitude? Maybe it is. If you love boating, go for it. But for most status purchases, the fancy watch, the third car, the trade-off isn't worth it. When you start pricing things in days of life lost rather than dollars, your spending line naturally flattens out. You realize that most stuff is just too expensive in terms of time. Finally, we have to address the literacy gap. Nitra and other financial groups point out that doctors are often targeted by bad financial advisors because they are seen as whales, high income, low knowledge. They get sold expensive whole life insurance policies and high-fee investment products. Part of keeping your net worth high is educating yourself. You don't need to be a Wall Street trader. You just need to understand the basics: low-cost index funds, tax-advantaged accounts, and the difference between a fiduciary and a salesperson. Taking 10 hours to read a few books on personal finance will pay you a higher hourly rate than your actual job as a doctor ever will. It is the most profitable work you can do. The goal of all this, the graph, the wedge, the delayed gratification, is not to die with the biggest pile of money. It is to reach the crossover point as fast as possible. The crossover point is where the income from your investments exceeds your spending line. Once you cross that line, working becomes optional. For Dr. B, that might happen in her mid-40s. For Dr. A, it might never happen. Being a doctor or a high earner is a privilege. It gives you a shovel big enough to dig yourself out of any hole, or deep enough to bury yourself. The choice is entirely defined by the gap between those two lines. So, here is the summary. Lifestyle inflation is why high-earning doctors feel broke. As income rises, spending rises in parallel, leaving net worth flat. The fix is to separate the lines. Cap your spending, let your income rise, and shovel the difference into assets. Avoid the big three traps: the house, the car, and the status signaling. And remember, the most expensive thing you can buy is a lifestyle that requires you to work forever. I want to hear from you in the comments. If you are a high earner, or you are on the path to becoming one, have you felt the pull of lifestyle creep? What is the one status item you almost bought but didn't? Drop a comment below. I read as many as I can to see how these numbers play out in real life. And if you found this breakdown useful, hit the like button so the algorithm shows it to someone who needs a reality check. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.